from the latest record for Gang Gang Dance. That one's called Romance Layers and Eye Contact, the name of the album that they brought out this year. And it was a former album of the week back in May. And a couple of weeks ago, I was lucky enough to catch up with one of the members of Gang Gang Dance, Lizzi. They've been active as a group now for over 10 years and releasing their fifth album, as I just mentioned, Eye Contact, earlier this year. And I guess they're a group who always continue to be really, really inventive and creative. And I started the interview by asking Lizzi, well, she recorded the record in a church near Woodstock, and began the interview asking if the environment had an impact on the sound of the album.
Absolutely. The sound was a journey from the desert to the mountains, and all of those elements really reflect the sounds. Like the desert started out really raw, sort of, and it was very desolate, and that's where we were writing the songs. It was near Joshua Tree, and there was this sort of dry heat, and I felt like the album actually had that. At the time writing the songs had that feeling, and then by the time we got to Woodstock, there was this lushnesss that sort of, it was almost like all the plants and the flowers like bloomed,
And apparently at the church that you recorded in, there were lots of ghosts. Can you tell us about them? Why do you think there were ghosts there?
Well, specifically, nobody told me about that until we left, because I'm very sensitive to things like that. I had a friend come up who's a psychic, and she had some interactions with them, and so did Brian, our keyboardist and composer. I mean, he had some pretty direct relationships with the ghosts.
Like what? What did they do?
Well, one thing was I had a cookie, and I put the cookie on the table, and late at night Brian came back to the house, and he was working on some of the tracks that we made that day, and his hair, the back of his hair stood up like this static, and basically he knew that there was a presence behind him, but he thought, okay, I better make peace with the presence, so he offered the cookie. And the next day, I remember not eating it, because I placed it there, and he said, did you eat this cookie? And I said no, and then we knew that was one instance.
Spooky. I guess while we're on the spiritual side of things, those that have seen Gang Gang Dance live before may have noticed a man sort of crouching in the corner holding a flag made from a broomstick and a garbage bag. And this is Tucker, your spiritual advisor and kind of the vibe man. Can you tell us how Tucker became involved with the band, and what does he bring to the group?
He's sort of shamanistic, and it's sort of like traveling with the shaman. He's very resourceful, and he doesn't like, he reuses, every time he gets an espresso, he'll reuse the cups, so he has like 10 cups that he reuses. He's very, he's very conscious on many levels about like the moods of the band and balancing out all the personalities. He just does it in a really natural way. He's a really old friend of mine that used to be a photographer, and I remember we worked at this gallery together, and then he ended up being my roommate, and I just remember he sort of had access to the company van, so the gallery van, and he was always driving around in the van, and I just thought, oh, maybe he could drive us around. And it just ended up, I think he just got more involved, and we sort of realized at one point that we really just needed him. And I think that, we're a really cerebral band. I think that there's a lot of forces that we engage in, whether it's the weather or where we're making music or what we're looking at, or I think that as a whole, sometimes we need something in the background that centers us, like the band KLF. We listened to that album the whole time we were making the record, pretty much the whole time we were upstate. A lot of like new age music that sort of balanced out the moments that we weren't writing or we weren't recording, and I think that really helped the album as a cohesive whole. I also think that the extremes of the nature of starting in the desert and ending up in the mountains, sort of, balanced it out. It was sort of circling around the globe. We like drama, we love drama. I love, Who Let the Dogs Out. I love old hip-hop. And I listen to a lot of pop music. Vocally, the most important thing for me, I think, in eye contact was listening to a lot of Jamaican, like club music, like a lot of dance hall. They like reinvent like songs from the 50s, like O'Donna, or really classic like Madonna songs. They'll just reinterpret them and sing them in clubs, and they'll have all these effects on their voices where they'll sound like a ghost, or they'll like auto-tune it out so crazily that they'll sound like like they sound really phased out. And I love that push and pull of even like Rihanna's voice is so interesting. I like her voice a lot, but I think that the Jamaican kind of dancehall stuff really made it really fun for me.
If we go back to the beginnings, I guess, of Gang Gang Dance, we had Black Dice touring here recently, and you used to share a practice space with both them and Animal Collective. I imagine it must have been a pretty special time and a highly creative time for the band as well. Was it a really kind of supportive environment, and was there a sense of community about it?
Oh, yeah, totally. It was great. Actually, we just got a practice space with Black Dice again after all these years.
Wow.
I can't even tell you what the support network was like then. It was really incredible. We'd be playing, and Eric from Black Dice, Eric Copeland, would be outside listening, or Dave Portner or Avi Chair would be out listening, and sometimes we would all jam together. We have recordings of that time, and we would share information about gear. And I mean, if you could picture it, it was just like a really small room, and we just had all of our stuff in it, and we would just share everything. It was really, really fruitful, and yeah, it was really cool. And then I remember, there was TV on the radio. It was in that space, and I think, Interpol was in there too. It was in Brooklyn, and there were a lot of bands in there. There was a reggae band. It was very cool. I loved it.
If you've just joined us, we're in the middle of an interview with Lizzi Bugatzos of New York City collective Gang Gang Dance, the track we were just listening to, Adult Goth. The group have been active for over 10 years now, and back in 2002, Nathan Maddox, who was the vocalist and one of the founding members of Gang Gang Dance, tragically was struck by lightning during an electrical storm and sadly passed away. And on their new album, Eye Contact, there's a dedication to Maddox with the track Glass Jar, which is the epic 11-minute track that opens the album. And I asked Lizzi why it was this track in particular she wanted to dedicate to him.
Because I wrote it with him in mind. When we travel sometimes there'll be something happening. There'll be like a huge lightning storm or a rainstorm, or, sometimes I believe that he's resurrected and metamorphosized in objects or things around me, and that's why the song was sort of written about him. Like, did I see you in the glass jar? Were you sitting, in the grass. It's just he's always seems to be around in objects and things, or butterfly, plants. So there's always things that remind us of him. So that's kind of why that's kind of what that song is about. When somebody leaves the physical world, they're still around, but they come to you in different forms.
Well, after almost sort of 10 years together as a band, and your 5th record with Eye Contact, what do you think has been the secret to a successful creative union?
I think it's the music that really saves us, really, because when we do get together and play, it is magical, and there is a very strong connection between us in the way we can filter through our minds and create something together. So I feel like that there's a definite chemistry and magic there. And I think that has really kept us going. There are other people in the world that have been part of us in the past that have definitely encouraged us to move forward, like Nathan Maddox, who passed away in 2002. After he passed away, he was part of the band. I felt like we had to do things in homage to him, and I feel like we just carry these old souls or ancestors with us when we play, and I think that's pretty much the message of the band, and that's probably why we continue what we do. It's for other people.
Don't